1 minute. Just Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanam Janasalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupagata Mahyam Dadadi Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Tapadakalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Sri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishwakanvitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyacha Kripa Sindhubhya Yavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namavom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pachachya Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. This is Bhagavatam reading on this Sunday morning. Lingaraj Prabhu, we have an hour, is that right?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, an hour. Okay. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 15, the text number 38. Am I right, Lingaraj Prabhu? Is that right?
Yes, Prabhu, that's right.
That's right. Okay. Swarat pautram vinayainam atmana sushmanam gade toya nivya patim bhunever abhyasinat gajahavaye Swarat putram vinayainam atmana sushamam gunair toya nivyar patim bhumer abhyasincha gaja bhave. Synonyms. Swarat, the emperor, Pautram, unto the grandson, Vinayanam, properly trained, Atmana, his own self, Susamam, equal in all the respects, Gunair, by the qualities, Toya Nivya, bordered by the seas, Patim, master, Bhume, of the land, Abhyasinacha, enthroned, Gajahwaye, in the capital of Hastinapur. Translation purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Thereafter, in the capital of Hastinapura, he enthroned his grandson, who was trained and equally qualified as the emperor and master of all land bordered by the sea. Purport. The total land on the earth bordered by the seas was under the subjugation of the king of Hastinapura. Maharaja Yudhishthira trained his grandson, Maharaja Parikshit, who was equally qualified in state administration in terms of the king's obligation to the citizens. Thus, Parikshit was enthroned on the seat of Maharaja Yudhishthira prior to his departure back to Godhead. Concerning Maharaja Parikshit, the specific word used, Vinayanam, is significant. Why was the king of Hastinapura at last, till the time of Maharaja Parikshit, accepted as the emperor of the world? The only reason is that the people of the world were happy because of the good administration of the emperor. The happiness of the citizens was due to the ample production of natural produce, such as grains, fruits, milk, herbs, valuable stones, minerals, and everything that the people needed. They were even free from all bodily miseries, anxieties of mind, and disturbances caused by natural phenomena. and other living beings. Because everyone was happy in all aspects, all respects. There was no resentment, although there were sometimes battles between the state kings for political reasons and supremacy. Everyone was trained to attain the highest goal of life, and therefore the people were also enlightened enough not to quarrel over trivialities. The influence of the age of Kali gradually infiltrated the good qualities of both the kings and the citizens. And thereafter, a tense situation developed between the rulers and the ruled. But still, even in this age of disparity between the rulers and the ruled, there can be spiritual emolument and God consciousness. That is the spiritual prerogatives. So actually, I am not qualified to speak on this wonderful subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Paramahamsa Samhita. The Hamsa, the swans always dwells in the ambrosial waters, the clean, serene environment they will be. And the crows are always looking for the carcasses where the dirty kind of things they're dwelling, and they always loiter around that place. So I'm one among us, those crows. We can just certainly take it's not for just lip service. I'm just saying this. It is, I know what I am. So that is why I just totally disqualified, unqualified, fully aware of this, but still to honor the spiritual authorities, I'm just speaking today this subject matter. So please offer your prayers and blessings on, and so that I can just speak something meaningful for the for my own purification. And if that gives you some kind of pleasure, that will be fine. Thank you all very much. And so we begin here. The subject matter, how this we have been hearing from the exalted devotees very wonderfully explaining the subject matter. The chapter entitled is The Pandavas Retire Timely, right? So that is what the title of this chapter is. And then we're going through this. For the rest of this, about 40-45 minutes, we will be just seeing how these things are happening and how the current day situation also, that is, we just in comparison with that, we will examine this. Actually, the emperor, the ones, as we understand through the scriptures, the entire world was under the kingdom. I mean, the emperor Yudhishthira was ruling. That's or the entire Bharatvarsha that is known as, and he was ruling. And these are the things that we have just understood from this purport, how the situation was then so favorable, despite of the Kali. Of course, Kali has not entered, only during Parikshit Maharaj's time that we just have already read how he gave place to Kali to reside. And thereafter, the influence of Kali, how we are seeing everything even till today. And further, there will be most degradation kind of thing that happens. The ruling of Yudhishthira Maharaj, actually there was, here as explained, everything was in abundance. There was no shortage of any kind of food grains or any sort of thing. Because he was a pious king, the king who is pious, or any person who is situated in that particular position, if he is pious, and those pious credits will always accrue to the kingdom, and so on and so forth to the citizens, they will always be happy. Everything is generally the king considers on all his subjects as his own family members, his sons or daughters, and so on and so forth. That is what a real king is supposed to be. But we see, because the power, as we say, power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So this is what you are seeing these days, the current day situation in the world, everywhere. You just take that. The power in that particular position, they just don't like to be just leaving the power, just like in this case of Yudhishthira Maharaj, how he just, when he understood that it is the time, the Parikshit is totally qualified to take care of the kingdom, he just enthrones him, and they all head to the forest for ultimate realization, self-realization. But current days we're seeing any shameful act can be just tolerated, but losing a power or the power of the chair is really the one which is unbearable. It under all circumstances, by hook or crook, what Srila Prabhupada always used to just say, by hook or crook, do anything, damn thing, whatever it is, that may be. But the chair should be protected. You should be on the chair. That is what the situation is that we're seeing and all over the place, all over the world. So we also see that now when going back to these, the Lord Ramachandra's, there's Dasharatha Maharaj, when he looked in the mirror, when he just saw some gray hairs on the sides of his ears, he understood that, okay, this is the time for me to retire now. The gray hair is just showing. So you must retire now, and then you must just enthrone some suitable person on the throne, and then you should retire. That is the time he decided to just enthrone Lord Ramchandra. And we know this complete episode, that how it went on, and like that, ultimately he is banished to the forest for 14 years, and then he goes to the forest. But while Bharat and Shatrughan were away into the kingdom of Kaikeyi, that is his maternal grandfather's place, this all dramatic situation took place. And then after he comes then, and by then he understands everything, and then he goes to the forest to Lord Ramchandra to convince him to come back and rule the kingdom. No, but then these are all these, that's, the pious kings and personalities always adhering to the principles of truth. And that's how Lord Ramchandra says, no, I can't come back to the kingdom, because that was the promise given by our father, Dasharatha Maharaj, to Mother Kaikeyi. So that is what it is, and I will have to do that under all circumstances. So after having failed all his pleading kind of thing, and by his all the great sages and the ministers, everybody fails to just convince Lord Ramchandra to come back to the kingdom. He just takes his footwear and then comes, and what is that? That place, Nandigram, some place, I'm not, I don't want to misquote. That place he just, outside of the Ayodhya, the kingdom of Ayodhya, in the borders of the kingdom of Ayodhya, he just makes his residence there, digging a pit and staying in the pit, and eating what Lord Ramchandra was eating, fruits and roots in the forest. Similarly, his food, his everything was much even lower than what Lord Ramchandra was having. The facilities like that. So that is the nature. Those people were selfless. They were always interested in the welfare of the kingdom and the subjects. So that was the thing. So had this been in this current day situation, we would just say, oh, Dasharatha Maharaj would have to adhere to those kind of things. Okay, this is getting great. Let me just adhere to those kind of things. Now let me call the parlors guys and let them just do kind of things and all that. So they would have a lot of kind of things that we see. What is that? Forever 16 and for all these things. I don't know. That is why the booming industry current day is that the cosmetic industry. It is just going just like this, growing like anything, because nobody wants to become old. Even if they become old, they just try to cover that age factor, or is something. I think the scientists are coming out with this kind of pills. What is the anti-aging pills? What is that? The life is meant for ultimate self-realization, realization of God. But they are trying to just find all artificial means to look young. What is that? No scars, something, no scars. You just apply on your face, there are no scars. It will be looking all beautiful, all nice. What is that nicety that's going to do with us? That is why the age of Kali, that is why maybe we don't understand what is the ultimate purpose of human form of life. And just like that, spoiling the human form of life, wasting time in all trivialities like that, just that is used in this thing, in this subject, in the purport. So this is the nature. So that is how it's going on. But also in the pages of Bhagavatam, we have another story that I would just like to read that. It's a very wonderful one, that is King Anga. So just over the rest of a few minutes, I just want to share the story, like you all know that, but still for the purpose of bringing it in this, I'll read that. Okay, this is from it appears in the Bhagavatam, what is that, chapter 13 of Canto 4. Okay. Sarvateja's wife Akuti gave birth to a son named Chakshusha, who became the sixth Manu. At the end of that is, we know the Chakshusha Manvantara, end of the Manu millennium. Nadwala, the wife of Chakshusha Manu, gave birth to the following faultless sons: Puru, Pusta, Trita, Dyumna, Satyavana, Rita, Rata, Agnisthoma, Atiratra, Pradyumna, Sibi, and Vulmika. Of the 12 sons, Vulmika begot 6 sons in his wife's Pushkarini. They were all very good sons, and their names were Anga, Sumanga, Khyati, Kratu, Angira, and Gaya. The wife of Anga, Sunita, gave birth to a son named Vena. This Sunita is the daughter of the death personified, who was very crooked, and saintly king. Anga was very disappointed with Vena's bad character, and he left home and kingdom and went out to the forest. So the king's duty, actually why this king was so much feeling for not having children, not having a son, just it is the king's responsibility also. It becomes his one of the prime responsibilities to give another heir to the king throne. So that's why in the absence of, we have seen that story known as that, Chitraketu Maharaj. That is also one thing that where he has 1 million wives, and out of all that, there was no progeny, and then things like that. We all know that he gets being blessed by Angira, and then so on and so forth. That is again a well-known story to all of us. And this is similarly in this case, Anga Maharaj was very much morose and not having children, and he tried all. Now here we hear further about that, what happens that. Okay, Vidura inquired from the sage Maitreya, my dear Brahmana, King Anga was very gentle. He had high character and was a saintly personality, and lover of Brahmanical culture. How is that such a great soul got a bad son like Vena, because of whom he became indifferent to his kingdom and left it? See, that is what the son, it was something like, what a person, of course, worthy of that, because again, scripture says, aputrasya gatir nasti. The scripture also says that when a person has no children, aputrasya, putra is, of course, this can be said as a son or even a children not having any progeny. That is kind of gatir nasti, means there is no deliverance. That's what it is said. The scripture says, aputrasya gatir nasti. So in that case, Anga Maharaj somehow we tried all this, but with all that, he has got a son, like very bad son like Vena. And this Vidura was inquiring from the Maitreya, the great sage Maitreya. Then here he says, Vidura also inquired, how is that the great sages who were completely conversant with religious principles desired to curse King Vena, who himself carried the rod of punishment and thus awarded him the great punishment, Brahmashapa. It is the duty of the citizens in a state never to insult the king, even though he sometimes appears to have done something very sinful. Because of his prowess, the king is always more influential than all the ruling chiefs. Vidura requested Maitreya, my dear Brahmana, you are well conversant with all the subjects, both past and future. Therefore, I wish to hear from you all the activities of King Vena. I am your faithful devotee, so please explain this. See, while Vidura was on a pilgrimage before the battle begins, Kurukshetra begins, he just, due to Duryodhana's the severe insult kind of thing, that such kind of insults he had many other times, but this was a very severe, so he keeps his bow and arrow on the threshold, and then he leaves for a pilgrimage. During the pilgrimage, he also meets the great sages of Namisharanya, and also we have learned that he also met this Uddhav, then all that. So then there is conversation between Uddhav and Vidura. Similarly here, there's my Maitreya Muni, and Vidura is just inquiring all these things like, so Sri Maitreya replied, my dear Vidura, once the great king Anga arranged to perform the great sacrifice known as Ashwamedha. As we know, these several type of yajnas, Putra Kameshti yajna, Ashwamedha yajna, these are all done by the past kings for various reasons. We also know this, even the Ekadasi performance in those days, the pious kings like king or emperor Ambarish, all that, the day of Dashami, they go to the forest with all the citizens of the thing that they summon there, everybody assembles there. Then their fast begins with all kind of this totally just know that narrations of the scriptures are going on, and all of them, the citizens will just hear to the discourse on the night of Dashami. They go to sleep, and early morning on the Ekadasi, they get up and they start their day. Just with all that, that way it used to be done. The Ekadasi, the fasting on Ekadasi used to be like this. And Dwadasi day, there is no again sleep, and they just continue their activities and all that. On the night of Dwadashi, they sleep on after having just completed their fast by taking the suitable grains, whatever is supposed to be, or if it is a Nirjala Ekadasi. And we also have this episode like Ambarish Maharaj just because because he was not doing for his own self. He doesn't need to do that because he's such a pious king, everything. But those days, kings, they were doing it for the benefit of the citizens, their subjects. That was not for the selfish ends, I should be like this, I should do this, it is all should be mine, all this. That was not the nature of the kings or emperors those days. They were all very well established, and with the religious principles, they were guided by the Brahmanas, well qualified Brahmanas, just not like something, just namesake Brahmanas or Veshadhari Brahmanas. Only having a big tilak and shika and then attire is an Brahmana, but doing things in a different manner. And that is not the thing. They were all fully guided by the Brahmanical principles, and they were all adhering to those rules, regulations, and similarly they were guiding the emperors and the kings. So they were ruling according to the scriptural injunctions. We also have another great, that is Kulshekar Alvar. He was one of the 12 Alvars, and he was very, acclaimed king, and how he was ruling on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a caretaker, he used to just report all that early morning, like in some of the temples. Even we have in the ISKCON Tirupati temple, I have just been there, and they just report. And other temples we do have seen that, not the collection, Hundi collection, this and that, but they do, there's book distribution, so many big books and small and so on and so forth. This is just to say that or acknowledge the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Radha Madhava or Radha Govinda, or whatever the presiding deity of the temple. They would just pronounce, they would just speak out all these things. These many books were collected, this much of prasadam being distributed, all that, thinking that is with the intention of just acknowledging the Supreme Personality. The presiding deity of the temple is the owner of everything. He owns everything, and then we are just carrying out functions on their behalf. This is what is actually happening. So this is the intention of doing so. Similarly, Kulshekar Alvar was a great king, and we have so many episodes to say that. Of course, in this connection, we're not going that touching of the subject matter, but to just quote that one another king who was very pious king, who was ruling with that intention that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the owner. He owns everything, and we, being the emperor or the king, I am just only nominal head, but performing things on his behalf. So that's why that was their mentality that used to be, and that's how they were functioning. So this here comes this way, and further, this Maitreya is explaining to this Vidura, dear king, we do not find, so this is, O king, we know that the paraphernalia to perform the sacrifice is very well collected by you with great faith and care, and is not polluted. Our chanting of the Vedic hymns is also not deficient in any way. For all the Brahmanas and priests present here are expert and are executing the performance properly. This is what they explain. We don't know what's the reason. Though everything is perfectly with any faultless, everything is faultless, but why this is happening? Dear king, we do not find any reason that the demigods would feel insulted or neglected in any way, but still the demigods who are witness for this sacrifice do not accept their shares. We do not know why this is happening, why this is so. Then they were bewildered. When everything is fine, everything is faultless, why are the demigods not appearing to take their share? Then they just, Maitreya explained that King Anga, after hearing the statement of the priest, was greatly aggrieved. At the time, he took permission from the priest to break his silence and inquired from all the priests who were present in the sacrificial arena. King Anga addressed the priestly order. My dear priest, kindly tell me what offense I have committed, although invited. The demigods are neither taking part in the sacrifice nor accepting their shares. The head priest said, O king, in this life, we do not find any sinful activity. See, those priests were so well qualified. They are trikalagnas. They could see the present, past, present, and future. That is the nature of the priests like that. And that's, we also have heard that even to ignite the fire in the Yajna Kunda, they don't need any kind of the lighters or matchbox. And so that's by chanting mantras, they used to just produce fire in the Yajna Kunda. So that is the nature, because they are all manasa, vacha, karmana, by their mind, their words and deeds, they were all pure. They were not, entangled into kind of word jugglery kind of thing. That's what Srila Prabhupada is often quote. This, no, they are fully 100% Brahminical order. They were just performing things in a systematic order according to the scriptures. And similarly, they were advising the kings or emperors in the same fashion. So there was no flaw in their kind of thing. That's why they could just see the past. They said, so then they said, your previous life, okay, O king, in this life we do not find any sinful activity even within your mind. So you are not in the least offensive, but we can see that in our previous life you performed sinful activities, due to which, in spite of your having all qualifications, you have no son. This is what it is. O king, we wish all good fortune for you. You have no son, but if you pray at once to the Supreme Lord and ask for a son, and if you execute the sacrifice for that purpose, the enjoyer of the sacrifice, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will fulfill your desire. When Hari, the supreme enjoyer of all sacrifices, is invited to fulfill your desire for a son, all the demigods will come with him and take their share in the sacrifice. So this is what we know, actually, the performance of fire sacrifice, whatever it is, that is Yajna Purusha, the Lord Vishnu, and all the rest of the demigods will come along with him and take the oblations offered by the Brahminical order. So thus, for the sake of his son, the king Anga, they decided to offer oblations to Lord Vishnu, who's situated in the hearts of all living entities. As soon as the oblations were offered in the fire, a person appeared from the fire altar wearing a golden garland and a white dress. He was carrying a golden pot filled with rice, boiled in milk. The king was very liberal, and after taking permission from the priest, he took the preparation in his joined palms, and after smelling it, he offered a portion to his wife. Although the queen had no son, after eating that food, which had the power of produce a male child, she became pregnant by her husband, and in due course of time, she gave birth to a son. That boy was born partially in the dynasty of irreligion. His grandfather, as we already talked about, his grandfather was that personified, and the boy grew up as his follower. He became a greatly irreligious person. That is the reason here we just been revealed. After fixing his bow and arrow, means who? This boy. The cruel boy used to go to the forest and unnecessarily kill innocent deers. And as soon as he came to the people, he came to all the people would cry, "Here comes cruel Vena, here comes cruel Vena." This is the thing. Even as a boy, see, these were his activities. The boy was so cruel, and that while playing with young boys of his age, he would kill them very mercilessly. My God. As if they were animals meant for slaughter. That was the behavioral attitude, behavior of this young, small boy, Vena, even at that age. After seeing the cruel or merciless behavior of his son Vena, King Anga punished him in different ways to reform him. But here we don't, here the law of the land doesn't agree with that. You should not try to do anything. So you should let him do whatever he is doing. But that is not the Vedic culture. Vedic culture, we just try to take the remedial measures and that don't try do the best as we can do. And then with all that, he is adhering to the same thing. He did all those wonderful things, whatever he could do. And what is it is said, that is, first, that is, and the different measures that is adopted. Gently be gentle in telling him, and then after that, just scare him by just showing your angry eyes on this and that. Of course, here maybe some CPO on the line hearing this, they would just not agree to these principles. They will just immediately come into the picture. That is also there, because this is the way that is being dealt here in this place. So we can just talk, but this was, we're talking about that time, what happened. And after seeing the cruel and merciless behavior of his son Vena, King Anga punished him in different ways to reform him, but was unable to bring him to the path of gentleness. He thus became greatly aggrieved. The king, king thought to himself, person who have no sons are certainly fortunate. Now he feels that, he realizes, it's like, once he would say that, what is that? Blind uncle is better than no uncle, but here he thought something like that. And in that case of Chitraketu Maharaj also, when he said, okay, he is a Shoka, Harsha Shoka, he will give you pleasure and pain also. Then he thought, he didn't think that way that he's going to be like this, but he thought he's a Harsha Shoka, he's going to die, but then he thought he would be, may not be, adhering to this and maybe just be mischievous boy, whatever that could be. Because in the quest of having children, because of not having any children, he thought, oh, that's very good. He did not even give any thought to this thing. What kind of, he would not even bother to ask, dare to ask the sage, what is that Shoka? What part of Shoka is that going to be? Or what type of Shoka is going to be, by which way would be lamenting? So he did not even bother about it. And then we saw the consequences. We understand that how the little boy is being poisoned by rest of the wives of Chitraketu Maharaj. And the story goes on like that further. Okay, here it is. But was unable to bring him to the path of gentleness, and thus became greatly aggrieved. The king thought to himself, persons who have, okay, no son is certainly fortunate. They must have worshipped the Lord in their previous lives so that they would not have to suffer the unbearable unhappiness caused by a bad son. A sinful son causes a person's reputation to vanish, his irreligious activities at home cause irreligion and quarrel among everyone, and this creates only endless anxiety. Who, if he is considerate and intelligent, would desire such a worthless son? Such a son is nothing but a bond of illusion for the living entity, and he makes one's home miserable. Of course, Srila Prabhupada also quotes, basing on these kind of scriptural injunctions and scriptural evidences, he would say, suppose we had someone in our past life, something, we did something bad to him or something, whatever it is, he is the enemy in the past, they would become our sons and take revenge in this lifetime. That's what Prabhupada says. That is true. Now here we are saying something like this, similar to that, but then it is, then what he said, then the king, although a bad son creates a hellish home from which an intelligent man naturally becomes very easily detached. Thinking like that, King Anga could not sleep at night. He was having sleepless nights. He became completely indifferent to household life. Once thereafter, in the dead of the night, he got up from the bed and left Vena's mother, his wife, who was sleeping deeply. He gave up all attractions for his greatly opulent kingdom, and unseen by anyone, he very silently gave up his home and opulence and proceeded towards the forest. See, this is the nature. The kings used to just, with all his best, he tried to have an heir to the throne, but then this heir turned to be something merciless, brute, and a cruel person like that, even in his adolescence. Then what can we expect when he grows up to be a man? So this is the nature. And but of course, in several parts of the world, I have seen, of course, that was a minister or interior or whatever it was meant for, he was supposed to be, and he was unable to get up from the chair and sit in the helicopter, but he was assisted by three persons to be seated in the helicopter and brought out of the helicopter. But even then, he was hanging on to the post until he passed away. This is the nature, because a sensible king really wants the welfare of the citizens of the country or nation, whatever it is. He would always think of is that who is the best, the successor to this throne. He would, even if he is not his own son, he would find a suitable person from the kingdom and enthrone him. That used to be the days like that. But now the power, whatever it is, that is so power mongers, power hungry people, these things that is going on, it goes on until they have to die, then only they will be leaving the chair. Otherwise, they themselves who are not relinquishing their responsibilities. Like in this case, Yudhishthira Maharaj, having understood his grandson Parikshit is totally qualified, capable of ruling the kingdom, he just enthrones him and they timely leaves for the forest for the self-realization. But that unfortunately, this is not existing current day. Then here what happens is, when it was understood that the king had indifferently left home, at all the citizens, priests, ministers, friends, and people in general were greatly aggrieved, because he was a very pious king, very wonderful personality, where everyone was feeling sheltered, everyone feeling happy under his kingship. So, but then when he is totally suddenly disappeared from the kingdom, they were all aggrieved, because it is like that he is more than a family member. So-called family members, fathers and children are just these days having with relations with some sort of kind of thing, that some what you call is the whatever is something selfish ends to meet one another's thing. And I was told once a wife was crying after the person passed away, her husband passed away. Oh, what will happen to me? How will I be taken care? And this and that. She was just crying. So not that the person is so wonderful person, he left his body or whatever it is, of course, in a materialistic way, we just think of it. We are just discussing that matter, but not. But see, everybody, there's self-interest there. Oh, who will take care of me? I have no other shelter other than this and this and that. No, but then that is only the thing. What happens to me? How will I be taken care? What will be my future? That is all that. This is self-interest. Everyone has their own self-interest. So far, my self-interest is taken care. I am so happy and I'll be very wonderful one day. This is the current day's world. This is the human nature has become like this. When people are pious and religious, then they would not feel like that. So here we have, and then what happens, they began to search for him all over the world, just as a less experienced mystic searches out the super soul within himself. That's a wonderful analogy is given here. When the citizens could not find any trace of a king after searching for him anywhere, they were very disappointed and they returned to the city where all the great sages of the country assembled because of the king's absence. And this is an emergency situation. So they summoned all the great sages of the kingdom. So everyone summoned there. With tears in their eyes, the citizens offered respectful obeisances and informed the sages in full detail that they were unable to find the king anywhere. So this is what happened. Then after that, the story further goes. Here is now after his father just abruptly left the kingdom, and now we'll see how Vena's behavior is. Is everything okay? Lingaraj Prabhu, are you able to hear me?
Yes, Prabhu.
Wonderful. The great sage Maitreya continued, "O great hero Vidura, the great sages headed by Bhrigu were always thinking of the welfare of the people in general. When they saw that in the absence of King Anga, there was no one to protect these interests of the people, they understood that without a ruler, the people would become independent and non-regulated. Naturally, because there is a real leader who is really worthy of leadership, will the entire things, all the things will be totally in place. Otherwise, the chaotic situation prevails. All things either and thither, everything will be in a pandemonium, all that. So that is what it's going to be. But then here in the same case here, they understood that in the absence of king, means a proper king who's capable of ruling the kingdom. So in the absence, the things will become totally different. The great sages then called for the queen mother, Sunita. Okay, because again, that queen is this next responsible person. They just called her, and with her permission, they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this. The sages were of the opinion, because that is the reason why they just, though they understand this boy is very cruel person, but with all that, that is actually there should be someone, because if there is nobody on the throne, then there will be like, in current days world also there is a minister without portfolio. If that particular person, he suddenly dies, this person without a portfolio becomes that person in his place until the next person really, or as per the norms, that person is elected or put on the throne. Until then, that interim minister is being put into that. So, but then here they thought, until we have some other arrangement, we can't just let the throne be empty like this, because that would raise so many other, people would raise their eyes to the throne, and then there would be some restlessness in the society or in the kingdom. So to avoid all that, the sages said, okay, let's enthrone Vena in his place. So then all the ministers, however, because ministers understand this nature of this guy, this boy, Vena, so they were just not, agreeing with this, disagreed with this. It was already known that Vena was a very severe and cruel. Therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of this ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there as rats hide themselves from snakes. We know that because, see, if that person is the person who is responsible, or some the authority or person who is heading that particular post is really very strict and adhere to these kind of things, but though he is a rogue, is all bad qualities. But with all that, again, rogues who are means the thieves and rogues, understanding is because the rogue understands the rogue very better than any other person, so they understand, oh my God, now our kind of things or activities are not going to be okay, because he's going to just something counter all these things, so we should better wake up our ideas. And they all hid as the rats go into their rat holes. Like that it happened. So when the king, when he became overly blind due to his opulence, King Vena mounted a chariot and, like an uncontrolled elephant, began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. This is my God. This is how his things, atrocities went to the limitlessness. Okay. All the twice born, that is Brahmanas, were forbidden henceforth to perform any sacrifice. Like we hear this in the case of Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, these are great demons. They know the Brahminical culture. They know the Brahminical culture. Wherever the Brahminical culture flourishes, there will be all piety, there will be all wonderful qualities. The earth will produce in abundance, trees will give in abundance, fruits and flowers, everything. So they understand. Being demons, they understand better than us. So they just understand how to ruin this Brahminical culture. So stop all yajna, stop all fire sacrifices, stop all kind of fight activities. So then attack the hermitages of the great sages. That's what they were doing. They really understand better than us. Though we know the Supreme Person of God is real, he is the one, he is the supreme benefactor, but with all that, we just, of course, while chanting, I sleep, while doing some activities, I think of something else, and this is what the nature, but then they fully understand. They understand worship GBC, that is Govardhan, Brahmanas, and cows. That is worship of these three will be wonderful. The flourish, that Vedic culture will flourish by doing so. But this, that is how they were attacking this, wherever these hermitages and then Brahmanas and the cows, they were killing cows and doing all these sort of things like that. So then and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus, King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. Imagine to what extent he has gone. Therefore, all the great sages assembled together and after observing cruel Vena's atrocities, concluded that a great danger and catastrophe was approaching the people of the world. Thus, out of compassion, they began to talk among themselves, for they themselves were the performers of the sacrifices. This was again interim, the kind of thing, they just had emergency meeting, emergency session amongst themselves. When the great sages consulted one another, they saw that the people were in a dangerous position from both directions. When a fire blazed on both ends of a log, the ants in the middle are in a very dangerous situation. Similarly, at the time of people in general were in a dangerous position due to an irresponsible king on one side and thieves and rogues on the other. Thinking to save the state from irregularity, the sages began to consider that it was due to a political crisis that they made Vena king, although he was not qualified. But alas, now the people were being disturbed by the king himself. Under such circumstances, how could the people be happy? A few minutes, then we will just leave for, I think it's only 11 minutes left. We'll just read out this. The sages began to think within themselves, because he was born from the womb of Sunita, King Vena is by nature very mischievous. Supporting his mischievous king is exactly like maintaining a snake with milk. Now he has become a source of all difficulties. We appointed this Vena king of the state in order to give protection to the citizens, but now he has become the enemy of the citizens. Despite all these discrepancies, we should at once try to pacify him. By doing so, we may not be touched by the sinful results caused by him. See, these are very much worried, means because these are the ones who enthroned him, but they will also be part of the sin. They will also have to share, because these are the ones by whose order or whose decision he was made a king. So they were worried about these sinful reactions. The great sages, having thus decided, approached the king Vena. Concealing their real anger, they pacified him with sweet words and then spoke as follows. The great sage said, "Dear king, we have come to give you a good advice. Kindly hear us with great attention. By doing so, your duration of life and your opulence, strength, and reputation will increase. Those who have lived according to the religious principles and who follow them by words, mind, body, and intelligence are elevated to the heavenly kingdom, which is devoid of all miseries. Being thus rid of the material influence, they achieved unlimited happiness in life." The sages continued, "O great hero, for this reason, you should not be the cause of spoiling the spiritual life of the general populace. If their spiritual life is spoiled because of your activities, you will certainly fall down from your opulence and royal position." The saintly persons continued, "When the king protects the citizens from the disturbances of mischievous ministers as well as from thieves and rogues, he can by virtue of such pious activities accept taxes given by his subjects. Thus, a pious king can certainly enjoy himself in this world as well as in the life after death. The king is supposed to be pious in whose state in cities and general populace strictly observe the system of 8 social orders of Varna and Ashram, and they where all citizens engage in worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their particular occupation. So anyway, this is how they do that, but then finally, anyway, this is about then how he has been cursed. Oh, noble one. So they try to persuade this, but the cruel and this sort of behavior person is possessed with, he will think what he is doing is right, his might is right, is all thing, whatever he does, it is his way, it is only my way, no other way. This is what his decision. Dear king, and even they try to persuade him with so many sweet words, so many things. When all the Brahmins engage in performing sacrifice in your kingdom, all the demigods who are plenary expansions of the Lord will be very much satisfied by their activities and will give you your desired result. Therefore, O hero, do not stop the sacrificial performances. If you stop them, you will disrespect the demigods. So King Venar, how he replies you here. You are not at all experienced. It is very much regrettable that you are maintaining something which is not religious and are accepting it as religious. Indeed, I think you are giving up your real husband who maintains you and are searching after some paramour to worship. Those who out of gross ignorance do not worship the king, who is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead, experiences happiness neither in this world nor in the world after. Oh my God, this way it goes on and on. He just comes out with that. So then the King Vena continued, for this reason, O Brahmanas, you should abandon your envy of me, and by your ritualistic activities, you should worship me and offer me all paraphernalia. It goes on and on, saying then, but the King Vena, who is simply inauspicious, who would blaspheme the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose mercy one is awarded all kinds of fortune and have opulence. Anyway, the line goes like this. I think it's only now 5-6 minutes there left. So then the Brahmanas finally, all having failed all their wonderful good advice, but of course, because of this person is not at all worthy of those kind of good advice, he just arbitrarily behaves, and the Brahmanas finally decide to curse him. You die at once. That's it, the Brahmanical curse, and he dies at once. And finally, because again it's become to the, back to square one, because again there is no, the kingdom is bereft of any king. So they turn the body of the cruel person, and there appears, what is that, Prithu Maharaj, out of his thing, and it's in a long story again. So this is how, when the great sages were carrying on their discussion on this thing, okay, the great sages began to think that although a Brahmana is peaceful and impartial because of his equal to everyone. Anyway, so this is the way that King Vena's cruelty ended. And finally, again, a pious king, Maharaj Prithu, what is that comes by churning the body. Then there is again after that, when a simple activity such is then, yeah. So we will just go for another, any 5 minutes. They're left with any questions or comments on this. Please come out with those things.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam. All glory to Prabhupada, Guru Gauranga. Yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, thanks for the wonderful storytelling.
Storytelling. I'm a person, I like stories and I would like to get stories.
Yeah. Your lectures are mostly, you refer to one other incident and keep it interesting and long. Just one point, Prabhu. So you told that, if a person is born with like a cruel child, if we, if we were wrong to them in the past life or something like that. Can you just explain that one a little bit more clearly?
That is what actually, that's based on Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada used to tell these stories kind of thing. Likewise, if somebody has been enemy in the past life and just that enmity to just square up that thing, they take birth as our children, I mean son. So then mischievous child, he doesn't hear, and then that how they take revenge in this way like that. So no, bad son. It is not related to all sons. It is not. But in case a spoiled child, what we say, so-called thing, and they become, and that is how they take revenge of that. That is how it has been squared up. That kind of thing. That is how Srila Prabhupada used to say. That is what, as my that comment was based on Srila Prabhupada's statement, not otherwise my mental concoction. The scriptures also say that sometimes like that. Yeah. That answers your point, Prabhu?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
That's very much. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else, anything? Otherwise, we can close that thing. I think it's another 3 minutes to go. If anybody has any comment, any question, please come.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Jai. Yes,
Go
please.
ahead, Balram Prasad Prabhu.
Danut Pranam, Prabhuji.
Danut Pranam, Vishnu Prabhupada Guru Gauranga. Yes, Prabhuji.
My hairs are getting grayed out slowly. And, but I feel that whenever you see me, you're getting, hey, you're looking so young nowadays.
Yeah.
That's your comment.
Yes.
So the moment you say that, my feeling is, I want to become younger and younger.
Yes.
So
nobody wants to grow old.
But that was a great reminder of what you said. That the moment that gray haired, the hair grayed out.
Whenever 16.
They're thinking about going to the forest. But for us, at the age of 25, 30, even 16, 18, I can see it's graying out.
Yeah.
So that means actually, what is that? I'm thinking some reflections were that life is very short and it is graying out very fast.
Yes.
And so take the shelter of the holy name and Krishna.
That's ultimate. That's how. See the Kali Yuga. Okay, you go ahead. I'm sorry, I shouldn't interrupt you.
So I was thinking about in that way, Prabhu. So thank you for that reminder. Yeah.
It's very fine because I know because I've seen one boy, even he's not even 15 years and there is total hair gray. So because of the Kali Yuga and there's no malnutrition, whatever it is they say, but it is like this, it's not that. See, those days, the Dasharatha Maharaj having just seen in his image in his mirror, because they were actually self-realized. They are not just like the whimsical personalities like current day we have in society. They are not that. Their nature is that ruling means that is what are they able to provide everything systematically. They're supposed to do that because they're guided that, what is that? They are guided by the Brahminical principles. They are guided by the wise Brahmanas. Like we know, our Srila Prabhupada also always quotes Chaitanya, what is that? His name is Chanakya Pandit. He is a moralist, of course. He's not, I can't just because I don't know whether he's a religious personality or he's God conscious and all that, but he's a great moralist for which Prabhupada always quoted in Srimad Bhagavatam also, we find his name. That is how it is. It's not getting gray means it is because we just now, because artificial means we are adhering to the all kind of things, that is what it is that forever 16 would like to see what is the point in looking young. If we don't have a proper, we don't understand the real purpose of human form of life. What is it for? You being looking young or old, it doesn't matter. What is that? It has nothing to do with, it is not your self-realization or God consciousness or going back home, back to God. It doesn't depend on how many Mangalaris did you attend or how many Mangalaris did you do, how many what you call seminars you attended, how many retreats you attended. No, that's not based on that. That's based on following the principles, religious principles, the 4 regulative principles, and chanting the holy name, following Ekadasi. Srila Prabhupada said, if you do those 3 things, I will take you back home, back to Godhead. That is what is assurance of Srila Prabhupada. So we try to do this, chanting, 16, the minimum 16 rounds chanting. Are we doing it in a systematic manner or my mind wavers? It is not that I am doing it that way, but it is supposed to be done. But my mind still wavers. That is there, but we bring it back and try to just take the shelter of the holy name. The name itself is the shelter, and the Guru and Krishna and the Vaishnavas. This is what we have to be trying to be doing that. That is what it is. It's not that I am I have already perfected my chanting. No. In case of Srila Prabhupada, when they asked, it took 30 years for me to chant, perfect my chanting. That's what. In some of the, Srutikirti Prabhu was sharing the memories of Srila Prabhupada in some of those things, some of the lectures I was hearing. So it's like that. So, but he mustn't have been, but Prabhupada must have just like that, but he's a self-realized soul. He just come for a purpose to just, establish this worldwide society and just, lead. And that is how we see, even after so many years of his disappearance from the earthly planet, we still have these people, new people are coming, joining. The movement is going on like that. Though we have, of course, because the Kali effect, even a Brahmachari ashram is not bereft of the Kali's effect, we know. And even Ramanujacharya, that we just understand that, that when this was happening like that, that then he just exemplifies, then he just, night sends someone to just, change his cow. This the Brahmachari ashram, the cow pins here and there, and they fight for those things also. That's what we see, because that is the effect of Kali. So we have to be very, on guard or watch guard of this Kali's effect. Everywhere it is there. But because ego comes into a factor, I am this, I am that, I am the just, very great personality or Pujari in the Naperville land area or Chicago land area or Expand, Illinois, all that, I am this, so when this is like, so it is there, I get bewildered and I just get caught by these things like that. I am myself confessing in front of everyone. That is there because Kali, I am not above these Kali's effects. Living in the Kali Yuga, I am just everywhere because Kali, as I told the other day, it is on a cruise excursion. It is freely, happily enjoying that because we ourselves are creating so many agents of Kali within ourselves. So that is the problem. Any other comments? I think with the time out.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Haribol Prabhu, just a quick, I joined a little late, so
Hare
I
Krishna.
was trying to make the connection with the Pandavas. It's the Yudhishthira Maharaj
Yes,
enthroning Maharaj Parikshit and this King Venas and Angas that you. So I was just trying to make the connection where for the story is that how the righteous king should be, and what if it's not, like, was there like a contrast?
Yes. See, now a proper and the king used to be like, even for example, I'll tell you, when in a situation where there is no suitable, even among his own sons, supposing he has several sons and none of them are qualified to be sitting on the throne, those days they used to be just finding a suitable person in the subjects, just like that, not born of his own kind of thing, but in his kingdom, a real suitable person used to be enthroned on the throne, enthroned. So that used to be the kings, because their only goal is to provide a suitable person after, provide a suitable person as a successor. That is what their goal used to be. That is their mindset used to be. It is not my son, my this, my this, all my. That is all I and my. Have I understood, first of all, your question, or has that answered your question, Mataji?
Yep. Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, I was just trying to, because this connection with the story of
Because
So
see,
that's-
the subject matter was, the title of that thing is Pandavas retire timely. So timely retirement is that because even Yudhishthira Maharaj wanted, he would have continued for so many years, just like that, because he is such capable. He is supported by his brothers Bhimsen, Arjun, Nakul, and Sahadev. They were all in 4 directions when they go, even for the Rajasuya Yagya. They get so much of wealth for that, for the performance of that such yajna. So that is an elaborate yajna. So they were capable. It's not that, okay, now my grandson and all that, let him be there. I am just able to do that. Why should I just go to the forest? Why should I do this? No. They were all, they think it is not ultimate goal of human form of life is self-realization. The moment they found Parikshit Maharaj is just equally qualified and capable of doing that, it is not that something, he is only expert in particular thing or not expert in other. No, well qualified in all aspects. They found him to be qualified person to be enthroned. They did it, and that's it, end of the story. The end of the story, they just left at once for the forest. not thinking of it. Similarly, when even in Parikshit Maharaj's case, when he was cursed by the Brahmin boy, he could have even counter-cursed. He is equally capable, but he did not. He thought it is an arrangement of Krishna for me. Immediately, at once, he left his beautiful wife, kingdom, children, ministers, horses or elephants, whatever you say, all that entourage is just left at once. Like, and again, of course, if just to not, I think out of context to say that just we relieve in the morning, just, we don't look at it and just get up, finish our business, get out of the bathroom. That way, they once left that thing. That is how it is. They're not bothered about it, what is happening, what is going to happen, like that. So that is the detachment they had. It's not attachment to the power and position. No, I should be hanging on. Why should I relieve? Why should I leave this? No, that position, that kind of attitude was not prevalent in those days. They were only interested at the moment because as the king, their responsibility to rule the kingdom in a systematic way as guided by the Brahmanas and as per the religious principles. And the moment they find some successor capable of doing this, immediately they leave towards the self-realization. They walk to the forest without any hesitation.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank
Mataji?
you, Prabhu. Yes, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for your question. Anybody else? Lingaraj Prabhu, otherwise we can wind up the show for the day.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.